In the presidential race, Donald Trump's challengers are joining forces to try and derail the GOP frontrunner. They've put their heads together, trying to keep Trump from picking up enough delegates before the convention to secure the nomination. And in case you missed it, Cruz making another big move on Wednesday, naming former rival Carly Fiorina as his running mate. And so here to talk about these developments this week, Paul Teske, the Dean of the School of Public Affairs at CU Denver. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Anne.
I know you call this move by Ted Cruz is desperate, but some might think it's brilliant.
Well, and we'll see, obviously, but this was, I think, a big week for Trump with the other primaries in the Northeast, where he did extremely well. At the same time, we had the Cruz-Kasich sort of agreement to, work as a team a little bit against Trump, but it wasn't even clear from the beginning whether they agreed on what their agreement was. So there's a lot going on in the anti-Trump or never-Trump group, including the naming of a vice president candidate before you're a candidate yourself, which is pretty unusual.
So Donald Trump, and he's unusual. He just in so many ways. I mean,
Right.
the way that he has risen to the top. What is it about Donald Trump? What are you seeing within his campaign that is appealing to people out there?
Well, I think what's so amazing about him is that his candidates love him and support him like all supporters of candidates do, but the people that don't like Trump, believe he's not really a serious candidate, which is a pretty unusual, mix, I think, over the years if you look at candidates at this stage of the process. And then within the supporters of Trump, and he did in these last set of primaries move up above the 50% level, in some cases up to 60% in states that are favorable to him, which, really makes him not only be a front runner, but really look like a front runner in terms of having those kind of voters. And I think the trade message is a very strong one. For his supporters, the notion that America is in decline and doesn't win anymore, and if he's president, he's going to help us win, whatever that means, in a particular context. So, he's clearly found a portion of the Republican Party that's very appreciative of his message, and they're strong supporters.
I know you've been watching political races for a long time now. What's different about this one? What are the quirks that you're seeing with this one that we've never seen before? Yeah,
given Trump's outsider sort of perspective and status, the notion that a very large chunk of his own party is very concerned about him being the candidate and the effects that that'll have on potentially on the down ballot of races for Senate and Congress and other kinds of issues. So the very strong support from his supporters, and at this point I would say it's probably better than 50% that he'll get the number of delegates he needs. I mean, obviously we have to see what happens in the next few weeks,
Sure.
but a lot of the projections look more and more like he can get there. And if there is a contested convention or the anti-Trump folks are able to deal with that, as you start to think about that, what does that look like? And what is the legitimacy of that process to voters generally and Trump supporters in
And what does the
particular?
Republican Party look like going forward after an event like this?
Yeah, I think it's very tough. Although, you hear people say, well, the Republican Party is going to blow up. I think the irony is that the Republican Party is in the best shape they've been in decades at the state and local level. They control more state governors and legislatures than they ever have before. So it's really a presidential issue, but I think the concern is if Trump is potentially as weak a general election candidate as the polls show him now, and they show Hillary up by about 10 points, although it's very early to be looking at that. But if that's a drag on the down ballot candidates in the Senate and in the House, there's at least the chance of the Senate turning over, and some people even think the House. So it's a pretty interesting one.
Very quickly, what do you think about Colorado's status of considering going to a primary instead of a caucus?
Well, I think a lot of people, this cycle really, because of the complicated rules and whatnot, have questioned why do we have caucuses, or why do we have primaries that aren't, set up so that the candidate that gets the most votes actually wins most of the delegates or all of the delegates, or as the case may be. So I think there's a notion that it ought to look more like a more small d democratic process, and a primary is one way to do that.
Well, again, we'll be talking more about that here in just a couple of minutes. We'll be right back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.